There is something to be said about the simple virtue of following one's duty. Self-imposed or not, it is something that can be commended. Most people, including myself, don't really take to most tasks that are given to us, but others cling to them as if it gives them purpose and follow them to the absolute best of their duties. Truly, this world would not spin without people like these. And when you get more powerful, this becomes a bit more noticeable. A nobleman who goes out of his way to work just as hard as those under them should be commended for this effort. In the sake of fairness, they sacrifice self-luxury. When you get to beings that are even more powerful though, this gets a little bit more interesting. Take dragons, for example, the strongest things there are short of the divine. See, there's not much that can get a dragon to do anything, say another dragon. Because of this, they can really just do whatever they want for most of the time. And that's why when one of them does give themselves to fulfill one duty, it is quite noteworthy. Despite all the problems I have with bronze dragons, I must admit that they are by far the most likely ones to do this sort of thing. Mind you, other metallic dragons do this as well, just to a much lesser degree. But they do have a special option that allows them to commit to a task like no other. An option that allows them to continue on after death. I have even heard one state that even in death, I still serve. Today, I wish to speak of a type of undead dragon, one that only loyal and faithful metallic dragons can become. One who serve what they believe to be a greater purpose. The Hollow Dragons. Their creation is quite a confusing one, not fully understood even by them, but when the option is available to a metallic dragon, they just sort of know. From how it was described to me, they get this feeling deep within themselves of the means and ability to become one. Because of this, I can't really describe the process in the greatest detail other than just the steps on how to become one. So, for a start, as I said before, only metallic dragons can do this, and it will become a bit clearer on why in a little bit later. Then, they must dedicate themselves to something noble and just. For an example, one sought to contain a small demon gate that would open for almost 1,000 years more, so dedicated himself to containing it. Another saw a kingdom on the verge of being destroyed by an endless wave of monsters, and pledged to the king and their bloodline to protect them forever. Then there will be a moment of realization, of reflection, when the dragon understands that it will not be able to fulfill this duty or task in its life, and it is given a new option. How this happens is, again, unknown, but I suspect there is some form of divine power at play. Anyway, once they decide to carry out with this option, they begin to transform. Their body reshapes itself and explodes in a bright, radiant light. What was once their flesh and organs is gone, and their brilliant scales are forged into a stylized suit of armor in one moment, often taking on motifs and styles based on what they dedicated themselves to. For an example, if a city had a certain style of armor, they would have a similar one in draconic form. Around this draconic armor is the radiant flames they are known for, replacing the bulk of their frame. This transformation might also include an aspect of their hoard too, like gemstones, but this is a not that common feature in an already rare undead. After this transformation though, they will change personality-wise as well. It's still them, mind you, it's just they've become more, well, hollow. Like they are an echo of the dragon they once were. They will have their memories and personality, but they lack their emotions now, almost all of them anyway. It's worth noting, since this makes them a lot more distant to everyone than they were before, and by extension, makes them much more dedicated to an unbelievable degree. In a way, it makes their tasks and goal part of their very being now. What type of metallic dragon they were before matters quite little now, as they are essentially all going to act the same. The only way to know what they were is to just glance at the type of metal their armor is made of, for as I said before, it is literally their scales turned into them. But the radiant energy around them might also take on elements of their last form. For an example, if a silver dragon becomes a hollow, their glowing yellow radiant energy might behave more like a misty cold fog, while actually being blindingly bright and hot. It is actually quite hard to look at a hollow dragon at times. But now that their task has pretty much become their only concern, it will be hard for you to in any way slow them down from their duties. In fact, they will probably go a little overboard in some aspects. For an example, one hollow dragon dedicated itself to a holy artifact, one said to be able to actually harm a god, and so it sought to hide it away. But quite some time after it hollowed, it decided that a settlement that was, mind you, within 600 miles was just too close, and told them to abandon their homes or it would burn them down. Even those of the kindest nature would be capable of such a radical mindset change, because again, this task is now all that matters to them. And their undead nature means that they will probably come back again until it is done. The only way to end a hollow dragon reliably is to fulfill or fail its dedicated task. If myth is to be believed, its success determines if it is able to enter its afterlife or not. But there is a workaround, a way to defeat them, so to speak. It was about time that I talk about their capabilities to begin with. So, as I was saying, they can be defeated in combat, but this means they are not dead. Instead, their radiant flames will go out and they will be split into 9 pieces exactly. 2 legs, 2 arms, 2 wings, their tail, torso, and head. These pieces slowly regain their power and begin the process of its reconstitution. This could take up to a week or be as short as 1 day, so long as the pieces are within a few miles of each other and have stored up enough energy, they will fly off and gather around the headpiece, and re-emerge into their full form once more. I do believe that these pieces can be destroyed, mind you, and this does stop them from reconstituting for good, but I have heard at least one returning even after this, so it is not a guarantee in any form. Mind you, this is something they can do willingly, as in die and split themselves apart for various reasons. My tale actually relates to this, but more on that later. But the only way to guarantee their end is to complete their task or make sure it fails. When this happens, the dragon will be able to pass on and die in peace. But I should note that this is a choice that they make. All of them do tend to make this, but there's always the chance the dragon still thinks it has more work to do, and stays to do it again with something else. But I should get into their other abilities now. So their breath weapon is replaced with a pure radiant burst that harms with massive amounts of light, but that's all it really does, no special effect around it. But the interesting thing they have is their aura attack, or sapping presence, as some have called it. This weakens all creatures close to the dragon that it views as a foe. This does a lot to you, mind you. It slows you down, weakens your body, and makes you less able to hit the dragon in the first place. Once you have shrugged this effect off though, you are safe from it for about a day. It also has the ability to bind creatures in holy chains. This is partly why I think it is divine in origin. Anything that is already within range of its sapping ability could also be bound in this. These bonds are ethereal in nature, so little outside help can be had, but the dragon would need to maintain this effect, something that's only really worth doing when it has a singular target anyway. But when it is dealing with a group, they have an option for that as well, for they can ring out in an enormous wave of clattering sound, harming all those who are too close to the dragon. This is not a magical effect, mind you, just the mere power of the sound of this dragon's freeform armor is capable of. But this does take quite a bit out of them as far as I can know, so they don't use it that often. Now then, onto my tale of a hollow dragon, one bound to a king and his kingdom. See, there was once a nation, the name escapes my mind at this moment, that had a problem with, of all things, ants. Not your typical ant, mind you. These were giant terrain-changing ants, and this large human kingdom was in the way of the colony. The kingdom readied for their advance, fought them off, and after hundreds of losses and the morale of the men at rock bottom, a ranger came to the king to report that this was only a mere scouting force. Luckily, in their hour of need, there was a bronze dragon willing to aid them. With the help of this dragon, they stopped this assault with heavy losses, thinking that the day was won, only to learn that the ants returned year after year after year. Eventually, the bronze dragon was just so dedicated to this cause that it hollowed and vowed to hunt their hives down and destroy them. It did just so, ending the queen, but deep within the dragon knew that this was not the end. Somehow, in its core, perhaps the process that hollowed it let it know that they would return one day. So, in equal parts nobility, or perhaps just pure madness, the dragon basically killed itself, casting it into 9 pieces, and the kingdom stores those pieces at different parts of the city's walls, just far enough away so it won't reconstitute itself. Safe, knowing that if any foe or any menace were to return, their bronze armored guardian would be able to save them again. Well, that's the story, and the city walls do have draconic armored pieces, but the ones that are still on the walls to this day are but replicas. About 7 generations down the line, there was an incident of vandalism, and the queen at the time was really worried of the loss of the pieces, so she stored them away in separate vaults under the city, for their own safety, of course. But the story is still true, nonetheless, and I quite love it. I find hollow dragons to be amazing. It's quite rare that there are truly virtuous undead out there. And well, yes, they are capable of turning a bit more sinister, like any bronze dragon, but just like them, they are still good at their core. Well, an aspect of them was at least, and it does kinda live on through them, perhaps only as a memory. But what a good memory it is. Thank you for listening to my tales. I'm the Ashspawn. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. It really does mean a lot to me. But, till next we meet, fellow traveller, have a good day.